This is an assault on America. Nothing like this has ever happened before. There's never been anything like it. Every legal scholar says this case is nonsense. It should never have been brought. It doesn't deserve anything like this. There is no case, and they've said it. People that don't necessarily follow or like Donald Trump said this is an outrage that this case was brought. It's an assault on America. And that's why I'm very proud to be here. This is an assault on our country.
Yeah, I have to ask, you guys have been, at the Times, have been live blogging this event. And 40 minutes ago, you wrote an observation that I was very surprised. Trump appears to be sleeping. His head keeps dropping down and his mouth goes slack. Tell us about that.
Well, Jake, he appeared to be asleep, and repeatedly his head would fall down. There have been other moments in other trials, like the Agent Carroll trial, which was around the corner in January, where he appeared very still and seemed as if he might be sleeping, but then he would move. This time, he didn't pay attention to a note that his lawyer, Todd Blanche, passed him. His jaw kept falling on his chest, and his mouth kept going slack. Now, sometimes people do fall asleep during court proceedings, but it's notable given the intensity of this morning and a lot of what was being argued.
Yeah, that's rather surprising.
Well, Jake, he appeared to be asleep.
Okay, and we're off to the races. By the races, I mean, of course, the first criminal trial involving the 45th president. I know it can be kind of hard to keep up. And by off to, I mean fighting sleep in the courtroom. Low energy, sad. But come on, you're trying to tell me that this spry fellow here took a wee nap? I mean, look how full of life he is. With jury selection on the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump beginning today in Manhattan, Trump set the tone for the day by ranting and raving on Truth Social early at 5:39 a.m. approximately. Just on the usual things about how unfair everything is and the gag order that doesn't allow him to talk about the case even though he keeps talking about the case non-stop, ignoring said gag order. But sure, he's the victim, remember? Before arriving at the courthouse to repeat his usual nonsense. But as it turns out, it seems like the early ranting on Truth Social and at the press conference has taken its toll on him. As the New York Times' Maggie Haberman described, Trump was falling asleep during early stages of the trial. And before the MAGA cultists claim that this is just fake news from the New York Times, it was also confirmed by a second source from The Guardian. And as a result, the internet did what it does best. It capitalized on said trend. Hashtag Sleepy Dawn. And how long before Fox News try and spin this as him simply bowing his head in an extensive prayer while snoring?
An op-ed this morning that said that if the jury is made up of 12% of people who even have the thought that there might be reasonable doubt, whether they support Trump or not, that's a hung jury. So it is interesting. Right? That 12% number, or any percentage really. What you talked about, though, the two layers of this, Andrew Cherkowski was just talking about on my show last hour. Defraud the books. Did he do that? This is what the prosecution has to prove. And then what Bill Hemmer just said, specific intent to commit a crime. In doing that, that's a high bar. That's why you bring in the salaciousness of Karen McDougal, who says she had a 10-month-long, hot, steamy affair with Donald Trump and was paid by American media $150,000 to take her story and then kill her story, allegedly, but she got that money. So that's why you bring that up in a case that has nothing to do with any of that. Because you're going to have to prove all these other things. One bottom line for Donald Trump today. This is the weakest of the cases. So no matter how he goes forward, it is rather uphill. And I liked what he said earlier. I like when any defendant talks this way. It is my honor. It's a pleasure to be here. Mm-hmm. Respecting the court. I've heard you talk about that and the importance of doing that when you've got a wall against you.
Right, and that he consistently does.
Now, as to the trial itself, it's one in which Trump's attorneys have tried everything possible to delay. Judge Merchan denied Trump's most recent request to postpone the trial due to his, quote, campaign schedule. He denied it, saying that there will be no trial on Wednesdays, and the first and last 2 days of Passover, there will also be no trial. Merchan went on to warn Trump that although he has a right to be present for his trial, he will be removed from the courtroom if he disrupts the proceedings and put in jail. I wonder if he'll be able to keep his mouth shut. Well, if he's sleeping, that will help, of course. And the judge also warned him that if he fails to appear for court, a warrant will be issued for his arrest.
And Chuck, some of the details along the way here, obviously Donald Trump is under a gag order. There's probably running bets on whether or not he breaks that or already has. The concern, of course, is when he does that, he endangers the lives of people and drums up anger, uses it to his political advantage. But really, it's for the safety of the people involved with this trial. What are the consequences if he does that? I mean, we haven't really seen consequences play out on the breaking of gag orders along the way with Donald Trump. Will this be different?
It may well be, Mika. Look, you know, it's an incredibly crass thing to do. To your point, it's also an incredibly dangerous thing to do. And it also, if you just take a step back, makes absolutely no sense. It's like if you're a pitcher and you're walking out to the mound in the top of the first inning and you stop by home plate to tell the umpire that he's stupid and corrupt and incompetent. I'm not sure you're going to get a lot of close calls over the balance of the game. So as a strategy, it makes absolutely no sense to me. And by the way, if he's convicted, this very judge who he has been castigating and the judge's family who he has been criticizing publicly, this is the guy who's going to sentence him. And so to me, you know, crass and dangerous and ineffective, but maybe that's the game plan, Mika, for reasons you and I just can't fathom.
And the thing is, are there more pressing issues at hand than Trump taking a cat nap during his criminal trial? Sure, of course there is. But in today's media landscape, in which there is wall-to-wall coverage on how the speed in which Biden descends a staircase is indicative of how he handles inflation, and how him wearing hokas actually disqualifies him from a second term, you better believe that I'm going to highlight stories like this.
Well, Jake, he appeared to be asleep.
Because if he's struggling to stay awake in a courtroom, how would he fare elsewhere?
John Meacham, if you could just give us a sense of the historic nature of what's going to be happening with Donald Trump's trial today, given that this has never happened before, what's the historical context you can put it in?
The historical context to me is anyone above the law in the United States of America. Before the Republic even began, Thomas Paine wrote, people ask, you know, in America, where is the king? Well, the king is the law, and no one can be removed from it. And so this is a test of our democracy. It's a test of the role of truth. It's a test of an ancient right of trial by jury. It's a test of, do we have faith in our institutions to deliver justice?
And it's not just like this is an anomaly for Trump. I mean, take his rally this past weekend in which he was found slurring his way through what I can only describe is what happens when the person in the class who hasn't done the reading is called upon. Also, if that person happened to be hungover and just popped a couple of Xanax.
Just this week, it was reported that an illegal and you just look at this, what's happening, where our union was saved by the immortal heroes at Gettysburg. Gettysburg, what an unbelievable battle that was. The Battle of Gettysburg, what an unbelievable, I mean, it was so much and so interesting and so vicious and horrible and so beautiful in so many different ways. It represented such a big portion of the success of this country. Gettysburg, wow. I go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to look and to watch. And the statement of Robert E. Lee, who's no longer in favor. Did you ever notice that? No longer in favor. Never fight uphill, me boys. Never fight uphill. They were fighting uphill. He said, wow, that was a big mistake. He lost his great general. And they were fighting. Never fight uphill, me boys. But it was too late.
I mean, honestly, I could give you a better description of Feynman's grand unified theory of everything after about 12 beers than this man trying to break down the Battle of Gettysburg. And this is why I get annoyed with how the mainstream media covers both candidates. Because, I mean, they'll both sides everything from policy positions to the White House China that they choose, but not mental acuity.
You know, you said you're going to give me some facts about Trump. Let me give you some actual facts about Trump and mental fitness. Let's just talk factually. Donald Trump recently confused Nancy Pelosi with Nikki Haley.
She gets like 9 people, and the press never reports the crowds, you know. By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley You know, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything? Deleted and destroyed all of it. All of it. Because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, so whatever they want. They turned it down. They don't want to talk about that.
He claimed he ran against Barack Obama in 2016. He ran against Hillary Clinton. He thought that we're about to enter World War II. We've actually had World War II. If we enter another World War, it'll be World War III. He thinks you can stop a hurricane with a nuclear weapon. He thinks you need ID to buy cereal. He thinks you can buy Greenland from Denmark. He thinks England and Great Britain are the same thing. He thinks that stealth bombers are literally invisible. He thinks that you can beat COVID by injecting disinfectant into your veins.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it...
When the reality is, while one candidate is zigzagging his way across the country, the other is golfing while catching Z's during his criminal trial.
His head keeps dropping down and his mouth goes slack. Tell us about that.
Well, Jake, he appeared to be asleep, and repeatedly his head would fall down. There have been other moments in other trials, like the Agent Carroll trial, which was around the corner in January, where he appeared very still and seemed as if he might be sleeping, but then he would move. This time, he didn't pay attention to a note that his lawyer, Todd Blanche, passed him. His jaw kept falling on his chest, and his mouth kept going slack. Now, sometimes people do fall asleep during court proceedings, but it's notable given the intensity of this morning and a lot of what was being argued.
Yeah, that's rather surprising.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.